Dr. Zixthera's crystalline fingers trembled as she reviewed the data for the 100th time. The Velthari research station orbiting the third moon of Kepler 442b had been studying various species' pain responses for decades, but nothing had prepared them for what they'd discovered about humans. The initial request had seemed routine. The Galactic Health Consortium needed comprehensive pain threshold data for all sentient species before approving universal medical protocols. The Velthari, with their advanced neurological scanning technology and clinical detachment, were the obvious choice for the research. "The human subject is ready for the next phase," announced her assistant, Dr. Mordun, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. Zixthera nodded, her attention fixed on the human male strapped to their observation table. Subject 7 Alpha, as they designated him, was a volunteer from the human colony ship Perseverance. Like all test subjects, he'd been informed this was purely for medical research and had consented enthusiastically. "Beginning neural pathway mapping during induced pain response," Zixthera spoke into her recorder. "Intensity level, minimal." The electromagnetic pulse designed to stimulate nerve endings fired. On their screens, the human's brain lit up like a supernova. But it wasn't the expected pattern. Where other species showed localized activation in pain centers, the human brain erupted in cascading networks of activity. "Fascinating," Mordun whispered. "Look at the prefrontal cortex engagement. And the hippocampus, it's practically glowing." Zixthera increased the intensity. The human, James, she remembered his name was James, grimaced but remained silent. His brain activity intensified, but not just in pain centers. Memory regions activated, planning areas, even creativity centers sparked to life. "Are you experiencing discomfort, Subject 7 Alpha?" she asked through the intercom. James managed a weak smile. "Nothing I can't handle, Doc. My dad always said pain is just weakness leaving the body." Weakness leaving the body. Zixthera made a note. Humans conceptualized pain as a beneficial process. Over the following hours, they documented something unprecedented. As pain intensity increased, human brain activity didn't just register suffering. It began forming complex adaptive responses. The subjects started creating detailed mental scenarios, planning escape routes, developing resistance strategies, even composing what their linguistic experts later identified as poetry and prayers. But it was during the psychological pain experiments that everything changed. Dr. Kelvax, the station's xenopsychologist, had suggested testing emotional distress responses. They showed James recordings of human suffering from their database, scenes of war, loss, and tragedy from Earth's history. The moment the first image appeared, every alarm on the research station began screaming. James's neural activity had exploded beyond all measurement parameters. But more terrifying was what their deep brain scanners detected. The human wasn't just experiencing empathy. He was somehow absorbing the pain of every human in those recordings, processing it through his own neural pathways, and transforming it into something else entirely. "Shut it down!" Zixthera commanded, but James's voice stopped her. "No," he said, tears streaming down his face. "Don't stop. They need to be remembered. Their pain, it matters." For the first time in her career, Zixthera felt something her species had no word for. Later, she would learn humans called it awe. The final test came accidentally. Dr. Mordun, in his excitement, had accidentally triggered the station's emergency lockdown while reviewing the data. As red warning lights bathed the laboratory and automated voices announced hull breach protocols, the research team panicked. All except James. Despite being restrained and having endured hours of induced pain, the human immediately began analyzing their situation. "The breach is in section C7, he called out, reading the display panels upside down and in a language he'd only heard for 3 days. "If you reroute power from the meditation chambers to the emergency force fields, you can contain it." "How could you possibly know that?" Zixthera demanded, even as Mordun frantically implemented the suggestion. "Pain teaches you to think clearly," James replied. "When everything hurts, you learn to focus on what matters." The station's system stabilized. The research team stared at their human subject in silence. Later, as James recovered in the medical bay, Zixthera compiled her report. But how could she explain what they'd discovered? Humans didn't just experience pain, they weaponized it. They transformed suffering into strength, trauma into wisdom, agony into empathy. "Doctor," Mordun approached hesitantly, The consortium is requesting our preliminary findings. Zixthara looked at her data one final time. Every chart, every scan, every measurement screamed the same impossible truth. Humans had evolved to not merely survive pain, but to thrive because of it. Where other species sought to avoid suffering, humans seemed to seek meaning within it. She thought of James's words, their pain matters. Send a message to the consortium, she said finally. Recommend immediate suspension of invasive medical protocols for human subjects. On what grounds? Zixthara's crystalline fingers traced the neural pathway maps spreading across her desk like constellations of fire. Inform them that human pain isn't just a physiological response. It's a survival mechanism so advanced that it threatens to make them unstoppable. As she sealed the report, one final note appeared in her research log. Personal observation. Studying human pain has taught this researcher to experience fear. Not fear of the humans themselves, but fear of what they might become when the galaxy inevitably tries to break them. They will not break. They will adapt. And in their adaptation, they will surpass us all. The red warning lights had stopped flashing, but Dr. Zixthara realized the real emergency was just beginning.